Mr. Minister, it's a pleasure to speak to you, sir. The first question I have is, as I speak to people here in Moscow, there's a perception that the US has changed. They're describing the US completely differently under President Trump. Do you think the US as a culture, not only the perception, but do you think has it fundamentally changed and their perception of Russia and President Putin?
I think what is going on in the United States is a return to normalcy. The United States has always been the country of two big parties who competed between themselves, who changed ownership of the White House. But the division during my years in the United States, which is starting from 1981, I've been there several times, serving for a long period. Compared to that time, the division now is absolutely striking. On that occasion, the main dividing line between the Democrats and the Republicans was more taxes, less taxes, abortions, things which would be part of a normal Christian life, and within this Christianity values, the entire politics were built, arguing with each other, but within the values which everybody accepted. With the introduction of neoliberal ideas, neocon ideas, but mostly neoliberal ideas, the divide became deeper, wider, and culmination was the first election of President Trump, which he himself admitted was a surprise to him, and he wasn't really getting ready. Now he is ready, and it is clear how many, 49 days yet, and such a rich agenda is already thrown into the public domain. So this split motivated, first of all, by the departure from Christian values, by the leadership of the Democratic Party, in my view, by promoting without any limits the LGBTQ, whatever comes next. Same, I mean, one WC for any gender. I once found myself in Sweden where the OSCE was conducting a ministerial meeting, and it was in a stadium specially arranged for the ministerial meeting, and I wanted to get out and to go out and saw WC sign, and I asked the guy who was accompanying me whether this was gents or ladies. He said everybody. I don't want any of my friends to experience this themselves. As well, America is, of course, not very much keen to embrace those values, and the persistence with which, fanatic persistence with which those values were promoted to the population, certainly made quite a number of people to decide for themselves that this is not what they want, and they supported Donald Trump. So it's back to normalcy as we understand normalcy. We are Orthodox Christians. The values are basically the same, though Catholicism now is becoming more and more deviating to the new trends, which we cannot understand and which we would not accept. But the fact that a normal administration without any, unchristian ideas came to power, and the reaction was such an explosion in the media, in the politics all over the world, is very interesting and is very telling. When we met, I hope I don't reveal any secret, when we met in Riyadh with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz and Steve Witkoff, they suggested the meeting and they said, look, we want normal relations. Normal relations in the sense that the foundation of the American foreign policy under the Trump administration is national interest of the United States. This is absolute and without any discussion. But at the same time, we understand that other countries also have their national interests. Right. And those countries who have their national interests and don't play into the hands of somebody else's interest, right, we are ready to have serious discussion. It is very well understood, they told us, that countries like the United States and Russia would never have their national interest the same. They would not coincide maybe even 50 or less %. But when they do coincide, this situation, if we are responsible politicians, must be used to develop this simultaneous and similar interest into something practical which would be mutually beneficial, be it economic projects, infrastructural projects, something else. And then another message went, but when the interests do not coincide and contradict each other, again, this is then the responsible countries must do everything not to allow this contradiction to degenerate into confrontation, especially military confrontation, which would be disastrous for many other countries. Right. We told them, we fully share this logic. It's absolutely the way President Putin wants and does conduct our foreign policy. He always, since he became president, underlines in his contacts that we are not imposing anything on anyone and that we are looking for a balance of interest. Same logic, absolutely. And you know, some people would say, "Oh, Russia is now changing and is turning away from the East, from China, from India, from Africa." It's an illusion. And euphoria is not what should be guiding us in foreign policy. By the way, China, for decades, has relations with the United States based exactly on the formula which I just described. Mm-hmm. They sometimes call each other names, which we don't mind. I mean, we also, in modern diplomacy, are using to get to new vocabulary. But they never interrupted a dialogue. They would say, hands off Taiwan, hands off South China Sea. But let's meet and talk. It's the same approach, the same logic, which is now accepted by the Trump administration in its relationship with the Russian Federation. And I think it's only right. There are no two persons who would be 100% alike. And same with countries. And countries who can seriously influence the fate of the world, militarily, the nuclear powers in particular, of course, they have special responsibility, not to shout at each other, but to sit down and talk and say, more or less like it was handled by cowboys in many of the Hollywood movies. He said that you know, and I know that you know that I know, and what are you going to tell me? Something like that.
Yes, please.
I want you to talk to us about NATO and how the Foreign Ministry will view it if and when the United States leaves NATO.
Well, it's a long story, of course, and it is a story about illusions, beliefs, disappointments, about partnership degenerating into rivalry, and then confrontation and animosities. I don't think the Americans would drop from NATO. At least President Trump never hinted that this might be the case. What he did bluntly said was that if you want us to protect you, to give you security guarantees, you pay what is necessary. But he also said that those who fulfill the criteria of the percentage of GNP, to be contributed to NATO, them, the United States would guarantee that they are safe and secure. But he doesn't want provide these guarantees, security guarantees to Ukraine under Zelensky. He has his own view of the situation, which he bluntly presents every now and then, that this war should have never started, that the pulling Ukraine into NATO in violation of its constitution and violation of the Declaration of Independence of 1991, on the basis of which we recognized Ukraine as a sovereign state, for several reasons, including that this declaration was saying no NATO. Americans announced that they are withdrawing, maybe temporarily, maybe not. They are withdrawing the instructors and experts who helped guide high-tech missiles, but others remain there.
I know that the Russian government is quite sincere in looking to pursue a diplomatic solution. What troubles me, and it's something that I continue to hear now from people in significant positions, that they see China as the enemy, and they believe that they can split Russia from China, and again use you, not you personally, Mr. Minister, but the country, as a wedge against China. So, how do you think, what will be Russia's approach in juggling this let's call it subterfuge by the United States to, on the one hand, offer you a hand of friendship, but at the same time, they have not released their desire to destroy your country and to also use you cynically against the Chinese?
The Americans know that we would not betray our commitments, legal commitments, but also, the political commitments which we develop with the Chinese. I don't know. I think the answer is let each nation choose its destiny, its future. It will be exactly in line with the United Nations Charter, which says sovereign equality of states, no interference. Trump is already saying about a meeting at 3, U.S., China, Russia. He mentioned that he would like to discuss nuclear weapons and security issues. We would be open to any format which is based on mutual respect, on equality, no prejudged solutions. If our Chinese friends would be interested, it would be their decision. But this does not negate the importance of Russia-US dialogue on strategic stability, and the interest in resuming such discussions was expressed repeatedly by Trump and his people. Trump's position, as I said at the very beginning, is that whatever differences we have, don't allow them to degenerate into a war, and whatever interests come the same way, don't waste the chance to develop this into some practical and useful.
So in the horizon, do you think, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but do you think there's a possibility of in the next, let's say, 10 years, of not only normalization of relations between Russia and the US, but back to an alliance between the two countries in the next 10 years? That's something already people are talking about.
The alliance means, at least historically, and this is deeply in our mentality, means that you are ally against somebody. Multipolarity, which Marco Rubio recognized, is different. How can you recognize multipolarity without recognizing such giant as China, such giant as India, Africa as a continent, and Latin America, Brazil, and quite a number of others? Multipolarity, in my view, would be evolving for quite some time. It's historic epoch, probably. And it would, that's my vision. It could be composed of superpowers by the size, by the economic weight, by the military might, especially nuclear, and certainly US, China, Russia fit into this category. Those who are not as big, they can participate in a multipolar world through their sub-regional structures. ASEAN, for example, GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, League of Arab States. And African Union, by the way, received the status of full member of G20 last year. League of Arab States wants the same. We are in favor. G20, by the way, is the format which is now proving to be not only financially and economically useful, but also politically. It might play a very positive role in the process of multipolarity. Yes, there are still remnants of animosity, but the rule of consensus is there. They don't vote, therefore they are more promising than the United Nations General Assembly, who every now and then, whenever somebody cannot get something from the Security Council, they go to the General Assembly and they stage a show with votes, with accusations, and so on and so forth. But not only Marco Rubio spoke about multipolarity. Donald Trump spoke about NATO, as I referred to his statements, repeated statements, that this was one of the reasons. And we insist that any approach, any attempt to approach the Ukrainian crisis, any initiative, and most of them are very vague, should concentrate on the root causes of the conflict. And Donald Trump confirmed that one of the root causes was NATO expansion, which created a threat to the Russian security. I, by the way, would like to emphasize in these new circumstances after the January 20 that the importance of Ukraine for the Russian security is many, many, many times bigger than the importance of Greenland for the US security.
Well, that's for sure.
And the second issue about root causes, I also referred to the extermination of the Russian language, media, culture, prohibition of opposition parties, prohibition of some opposition media, even published in Ukrainian language and operating in Ukrainian language, murder and disappearance of journalists, not to mention the military crimes, war crimes against the people in Donbass immediately after the coup when they called them terrorists. And all this grossly violates the UN Charter, which says everybody must respect human rights of every person, irrespective of race, gender, language, or religion. It's on top. It's Article 1 of the UN Charter. But I am mostly amazed with this peacekeepers obsession. Peacekeepers, let's stop. Macron says, let's stop in 1 month. Peacekeepers would be deployed. Then we'll see what to do next. It is not what we say is required for the end of this war, which the West waged against us through Ukrainians with their direct participation of their military. We know this. If NATO expansion is recognized, at least by Donald Trump, as one of the root causes, then the presence of the troops from NATO countries under any flag in any capacity on Ukrainian soil is the same threat.
You won't accept it under any conditions?
Under any conditions, well, nobody is talking to us. They keep saying nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, but they do everything about Russia without Russia. Planning. Trump, by the way, when asked about peacekeepers, he said, well, it's too early to discuss this, but normally you need the consent of the parties. Why should we give consent to the peacekeeping force or peacekeeping group even, not force, though they want force, right, from the composed of the countries who declared us an enemy, and they would come as peacekeepers. And the second thing is the rights and the fate of the people who live not only on the liberated territories, but on the territories under the control of the regime. They also, most of them, speak Russian. They were brought as part of the Russian culture. And they want their kids to know Russian and to learn Russian. My question was whether this law, or several pieces of law, prohibiting Russian language, whether this would be cancelled on the territory which would be left of Ukraine. There is no answer. Another question, whether you would still keep this monument to Bandera, who collaborated with Hitler and was accused, convicted by the Nuremberg Tribunal. So the rest of Ukraine would keep this monument and would keep prohibition of Russia, would stage the torch marches with insignia from SS divisions, then, with all respect, this would be not a group, a force keeping peace. This would be a group keeping and protecting the Nazi regime.
Right.
And this is absolutely non-starter.
May I ask you about Gaza? President Putin has expressed outrage at the genocide in Gaza. What will be the position of the foreign ministry if the Netanyahu regime attacks Iran, as Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly threatened?
Unfortunately, we used to have good relations with President Netanyahu. Putin always is underlining when he speaks about this region that the solution is impossible without a Palestinian state and without a reliable security arrangements for Israel. The two states were created by the decision of the General Assembly, 1948, 48. And the decision, I don't remember the exact wording, but the decision basically conditioned the creation and existence of one state against the creation and conditions of another, and the existence of another. Now everybody who wants a Palestinian state speaks about 1967 borders, which is very different from 1948 borders, which were supposed to be the borders of Israel and of Palestine. If you take a look at a map now, 1967 borders is like galaxy compared to what you have, and the West Bank is all in settlements. And the latest development I saw many reports that Israelis decided to annex in a specific way the West Bank by taking it under total control without sending Palestinians out, but concentrating them in several municipalities, not in camps, in municipalities.
Is Iran part of the current negotiations as well?
On
the peace negotiations when it comes to Ukraine, does that include other
on
geopolitical issues?
On Ukraine.
Yes, so as President Putin and President Trump are talking, is it purely about Ukraine, or could it include other geopolitical interests for Russia?
No, we discussed the situation in the Persian Gulf. We discussed the joint comprehensive action program on Iran nuclear issue. We are in favor of restoring the original program from which the Americans dropped during the first Trump government. There are some contacts on the European side. We would be in favor of resuming the format which developed the original deal endorsed by the Security Council, which is France, Germany, UK, US, Russia, China, and Iran. We'll see how it goes. But what is worrying is that there are some indications that the Americans would like this New Deal to be accompanied by political conditions, insisting that there should be some verifiable arrangement for Iran not to support groups in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria, anywhere, which I don't think is going to fly. Look, all countries of this region in the Gulf, all of them have influence beyond the borders of their kingdoms, emirates, Northern Africa. They undertake quite a number of programs, humanitarian, economic programs. They mediate a lot. Sudan, for example, and domestic crisis in Sudan is being handled one way or another by some players in the Gulf. So to say that everybody has this right to project influence, except Iran,
Yeah.
I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah. No. What about President Putin's statement June 2024 regarding the conditions for a settlement to even start negotiations with Ukraine? And my reading of it has been President Putin's position has been the same. Your position has been the same as the president's. It's been also by Vice Minister Rybkov has said it. And yet I think there are some in the West that perceive that you don't really mean what you say.
Great answer.
Let them be misguided.
Yeah.
Our conscience is very clear and clean.
Yes.
And it is clean not because we use it seldom. It's because we have been burning our fingers so many times that on this particular crisis we know what must be done, and that we would not, compromise the way which would compromise the fate of the people. It's not about the territories; it's about the people. April 2022, Istanbul. Macron said that Putin tried to impose something on Zelensky. It's another lie by Macron.
Yeah.
Because the paper which was initialed by us and Ukrainians was prepared by Ukrainians. And we accepted this. It was very straightforward. No NATO, no military bases, no military maneuvers. Instead of NATO, guarantees are provided by Permanent Five, plus Germany, plus Turkey, and the list is open. Anybody who would like can join the list of guarantors. And these guarantees do not cover Crimea and the part of Donbass which was controlled by Russia at that time. And it was their thing.
Yeah.
And these principles were initialed, and there was an agreement to develop a treaty paper on this basis. Then Boris Johnson said, don't do it, continue to fight, just like the head of German intelligence now says that we cannot stop until 2029. Maybe they want to sit out Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
So had they been cooperative and had they delivered on their own initiative, they would still have 1991 borders minus Crimea, minus some part of Donbass.
They should have taken the deal.
Of course they should.
Every time they cheat, they lose. And the process continues.